Have you ever decorated a room and thought, yep, this feels right? But a few weeks later, everything in life felt like it was just dragging? Work got weird. Money slowed down. Even your energy felt like it was stuck in neutral. And here's the kicker. The space still looked nice. In Feng Shui, that's one of the biggest traps. Because sometimes, the prettiest colors are the worst for flow. I'm talking about soft blues, muted grays, barely there lavender, that calm beige everyone on Pinterest swears by. These shades look peaceful, but they don't move energy. They flatten it. And when energy flattens, money gets quiet. Luck gets lost. This is Eric's story, 38, living in Austin with a newly painted apartment, and a girlfriend who started asking why his place made her feel tired. He didn't think paint colors could mess up his life, but he was about to learn. Feng Shui doesn't care if a color is trendy. It only cares if the energy moves. If this kind of wisdom speaks to you, if you've ever felt like you're doing everything to stay afloat, and it still isn't flowing, thank you for being here. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, or even drop a comment below. It helps YouTube know you're part of this quiet shift. Eric didn't think much about the paint. He just wanted something that felt calm. After a long stretch of moving, adjusting, working overtime, he needed the bedroom to feel like a place where life slowed down. So he picked pale blue, the kind you see in spa brochures. He'd read somewhere it was soothing. And honestly, it looked good on Instagram. But 2 weeks in, the mood of the space started shifting. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of quiet change most people ignore. Days felt longer, but not in a good way. Nights didn't recharge anything. Every morning felt like climbing out of a dream you didn't want to stay in, but couldn't really leave behind either. The space didn't feel bad, just drained. Like the energy never really made it in. That's the kind of Feng Shui mistake that never shows up on a checklist. Because it's not in what you do. It's in what you slowly stop feeling. Feng Shui sees color as current. Not just pigment, not just style. Color is how energy picks up speed or loses it. Pale blue belongs to the water element, but not a rushing river. More like still water in the shade. It slows energy down, softens sharp thoughts. And in the wrong space, like a bedroom for an active adult life, it turns personal momentum into energetic fog. Instead of recharging your energy, it dissolves it. It thins out motivation. And with that, money flow starts wobbling. Because when energy isn't grounded, cash isn't either. You can't manifest wealth when your space keeps pressing snooze. And you sure can't ride a wave of lucky flow if your room feels like the waiting room of a therapist you never called. It felt like time slowed down, but not in a gentle way. More like everything paused and forgot to start again. Eric didn't feel lazy, but things started slipping. Missed an email from a freelance lead. Left his wallet at home 2 days in a row. Slept through alarms he never used to need. Lisa, his girlfriend, started crashing at her place more often. Not because they fought, but because, as she put it, your room kinda makes me feel like a ghost. That hit harder than it should have, and it stuck. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't depression. It was disconnection. From action. From attention. From that sharpness that makes you feel like you're in the game. Feng Shui doesn't just talk about where energy gets blocked. It tells you what gets blocked inside you. And for Eric, that soft blue wasn't healing. It was numbing. When your energy flattens, your ability to act on abundance flattens too. It's like putting your life on airplane mode without realizing it. Everything still works. You're still reachable. But nothing's updating. No momentum, no clarity, no notifications from the universe. The pale blue looked good in photos. But real life isn't a flat lay. It's meant to circulate, to breathe, shift, pulse. And in Feng Shui, when your space doesn't move your energy, it starts moving your wealth out the back door. Eric wasn't stuck because of what was wrong. He was stuck because of what felt fine, but pulled him quietly off track. A color that doesn't ground you will eventually unground your flow. Eric didn't Google Feng Shui first. He looked up. Colors that make you tired. Bedroom colors and energy. Why does my room make me feel slow? Turns out, light blue tones in large amounts can lower mental alertness and suppress emotional engagement, especially when paired with soft lighting and quiet environments. Basically, calm turned into low power mode. Even his old psychology prof had once said, "Environment is the invisible hand that shapes your focus." He didn't need a new mattress. He needed to wake the energy back up. He didn't repaint right away. That felt like too much. So he shifted the energy instead. He brought in textured neutrals, rough linen, deeper creams, added a terracotta lamp, swapped pale curtains for light amber ones. Lisa brought him a citrine crystal and joked, "If this thing doesn't move your money, at least it's sunny." The next morning, he noticed something. He actually wanted to get up. Not because he had to, because something in the space felt lighter. A week later, his freelance client circled back. They hadn't forgotten him. They just didn't feel urgency. Until he did. The room didn't just feel different. It felt like someone had pressed play again. When Josh came by, he pointed at the blue paint swatch still taped to the wall and said, "Bro, did your bedroom try to turn into a dentist's office or what?" Eric laughed harder than he'd expected. That laugh, it felt like the first one in weeks that didn't come from effort. Sometimes, healing starts with color. But the real shift comes when you realize you weren't lazy. You were living in the wrong frequency. And Feng Shui? It's not about style. It's about knowing when your environment has been talking and you just weren't listening. Turns out, chill vibes only can bankrupt your drive. Not every clean look brings clean energy. Some wipe out the very flow that keeps your life moving forward. Eric always thought gray was the safe choice. It looked grown. It felt calm, easy to decorate around, and matched everything. And after fixing up his bedroom, the next space to tackle was the living room. He painted the walls a soft ash gray, got a concrete gray rug, charcoal throw pillows. Even the coffee table had brushed steel legs that somehow made sense. But somewhere between modern and monotone, the energy of that room just stopped. It became the kind of space people passed through but never stayed in. Not cozy, not energizing, just blank. Josh came over to watch a game and kept fidgeting. Lisa would open the curtains but still say it felt heavy. Even Eric felt it. The kind of drag where time didn't move and thoughts couldn't land. The room didn't feel peaceful. It felt like hitting a snooze button that never turned off. Feng Shui sees gray as a neutral that leans towards stillness. But when used in large amounts, it doesn't create calm. It creates pause, and not the kind that heals. Gray lacks heat. It lacks direction. And in Feng Shui, that means energy flow gets scattered. There's no warmth to guide it, no grounding to hold it, no color to activate it. In a space meant for interaction, connection, laughter, even money conversations, gray turns the dial down on everything. Instead of circulation, it creates static. Instead of flow, it causes flatline. Instead of inviting wealth, it leaves opportunity standing at the door. When a space holds no charge, money has no reason to stay. Eric didn't want to admit it, but he started skipping that room completely. Mornings used to begin with coffee on the couch. Now he made coffee and took it straight back to the bedroom. Evenings used to mean music, reading, scrolling. Now it was just background silence and a stack of half-done things. The space felt blank, and so did he. And that blankness started echoing in other parts of life. Forgetfulness, fatigue, weird tension in his chest that didn't feel medical. Just pressure. Lisa noticed too. She stopped suggesting dinners at his place. Not because of him, but because of the weird energy that just doesn't feel like you anymore. That was the part that got under the skin. He'd created a space to feel stable, and ended up building something that made him disappear. It was like living in a hotel lobby after hours. Everything in the right place, but no soul, no edge, no memory. And Feng Shui warns exactly about that. When space becomes too perfect, it stops holding your energy. It becomes a container, not a channel. And when life has nowhere to move, cash flow doesn't move either. Abundance doesn't live in static. It lives in circulation. It lives in contrast. It lives in the moment something interrupts the monotone. The more a space feels like nothing, the more it becomes a magnet for what you don't want. Eric didn't turn to Feng Shui first. He started with articles about color psychology. And one sentence stood out: gray in excess can dampen emotional tone, lower cognitive clarity, and reduce social engagement. That tracked. The more gray took over his space, the less clear things became. And then another piece on Feng Shui, this time mentioned that too much gray can confuse the balance between metal and earth energy, which translates into indecision, low drive, and fading ambition. It wasn't his personality shifting. It was his environment reshaping it. He didn't need to throw everything out. He needed to break the tone. The rug stayed, but he layered a bold woven runner over it, added ochre cushions, a burnt orange side table, and a thrifted art piece with deep green curves and gold accents. Lisa walked in and smiled. Josh said it felt less like a robot lives here. And Eric? He sat on the couch that evening, no lights on yet, and felt something he hadn't in weeks. Engagement. A kind of silent yes that made him want to build again. Mood shift kit. The room felt like it took a breath and let one out. When Kevin came by later that weekend, he saw the splash of colors and asked, "Is this your quarter-life crisis, or did Feng Shui finally slap you?" Eric pointed at the deep green print and said, "If this thing doesn't fix my wallet, at least it fixes my eyes." The laugh came easy, but the truth underneath it sat steady. This wasn't about decorating. It was about correcting. The room didn't need more gray. It needed a pulse. And sometimes, lucky flow starts the moment you stop playing it safe with your space. When your living room looks like printer ink, don't be shocked your life's out of color. If any part of this story feels oddly familiar, like you've walked through your own version of it without the words, that's Feng Shui doing its quiet work. And if it's been helpful so far, you can support the shift by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, or even sharing your story in the comments. This is how we rebuild flow. One insight, one home, one quiet change at a time. A kitchen with no color is like a wallet with no cash. Looks fine at first, until you try to pull something real out of it. Eric had never paid attention to the kitchen. It came with the place. Beige cabinets, cream walls, tan tile backsplash that sort of matched the barely there countertops. It wasn't broken. It just wasn't anything. He figured he'd focus on other rooms first. Until one morning, something shifted. The kitchen felt cold. Not in temperature, in presence. He poured his coffee, same routine, but the space around him felt drained. No spark, no rhythm. The fridge buzzed louder than usual. The counters looked lifeless even in morning light. It was the kind of feeling you only notice when something inside you is looking for momentum, and your space offers nothing back. Eric didn't know yet, but he was standing in a Feng Shui energy sink. The space felt faded, like it had been washed too many times, and finally lost its shape. Feng Shui teaches that the kitchen is the heart of wealth. It's where energy turns into nourishment, and nourishment becomes action, clarity, and cash flow. But when the kitchen is filled with washed-out tones, like pale beige, chalky cream, and faded yellow, it loses its heat, its grounding, its abundance. These soft neutrals don't activate anything. They mute the fire element. And Feng Shui sees that as cutting the legs out from under your money table. The stove becomes dull. Food prep feels off. And even money conversations that start in the kitchen tend to fizzle before they go anywhere. A colorless kitchen is a signal to energy. There's nothing to pick up, nothing to circulate, nothing to build from. If your kitchen holds no energy, your wealth has no place to grow roots. Eric didn't cook much, but even takeout didn't feel right in there. He'd unwrap dinner on the counter and leave it half-touched. Start the dishwasher, then forget to run it. One night, he ordered from that fusion place he and Lisa liked, but forgot she had already eaten. They sat in that dull kitchen, not talking much. Just forks and quiet and overhead lighting that made everything look tired. That was the night Lisa said something that stuck. "You ever notice how we both get quieter in here?" And he did. Not just with her, with everyone. The kitchen had become a place where energy went to disappear. And so did attention. So did conversation. So did spark. Even his appetite dipped. And with it, the small pleasure that anchors busy lives in the present. It felt like trying to light a candle in a wind tunnel. Nothing held. No warmth. No flame. In Feng Shui, the kitchen is where yang energy builds. It feeds purpose. It strengthens movement. It stokes the fire needed to push ideas into action. But washed out tones? They cool that fire down to ash. The space stops cooking. Not food flow. The flow of momentum. The flow of decisions. The flow of wealth. Eric wasn't missing ingredients. He was missing charge. A kitchen that can't stir energy will quietly starve everything else around it. Eric searched. Why kitchens feel dead? Colors that kill appetite. Kitchen Feng Shui for energy. One article popped up from a home wellness blog. Too much beige in the kitchen equals emotional dullness plus appetite drop. Another added, muted colors in food zones, lower sensory feedback, which reduces engagement and emotional presence. And then one short post on Feng Shui explained, kitchen energy is like fire, don't drown it in oatmeal. He laughed, but it stuck. He wasn't in a bad kitchen. He was in a blank one. And blank doesn't feed lucky flow. It just holds space for missed energy. Fixing it didn't take a full remodel. He started with fire, added a deep red kettle, terracotta planter near the window, a bold fruit bowl with fresh oranges and a yellow dish towel underneath, swapped a dull bulb for a warm daylight LED, moved the trash bin farther from the stove. Thank you, Feng Shui read it. Lisa gifted him a bright little framed art print with gold edges and citrus colors. It landed above the counter and instantly felt like a spark. And over the next few days, Eric found himself actually cleaning the counter after coffee, cooking one night a week. Not big meals, but with music on and movement. That was the difference. The kitchen started moving again. The space didn't just look brighter. It felt like it remembered how to be alive. Kevin came over a week later, took one look at the new colors, and asked if Eric had joined some cult of citrus. Eric handed him a cold ginger soda and said, "If the cult brings my energy back, I'll sign up twice." The room laughed with them. Not literally, but in the way a space can hold noise without tension. That's what Feng Shui does when you stop erasing your fire. It brings the cash, the conversation, and the connection back into rooms you didn't know had gone quiet. The only thing worse than beige toast is a beige kitchen trying to toast your luck. If the entrance to your home feels lifeless, it's not just a design issue. It's a message to energy that says, "You're not welcome here." There was a moment Eric almost tripped on his own keys. Not because he dropped them, but because the front entry of his apartment felt like a void. White walls, off-white tile, one small bench that matched the floor so perfectly it might as well have been invisible. No hooks, no art, no color. Just a floating shelf that held receipts and mail that never made it past the door. He used to come home and exhale. Now he came home and felt interrupted. The transition from outside to inside no longer softened him. It swallowed him. And somehow that small stretch between the threshold and the hallway began to carry more weight than the rest of the apartment combined. Not emotional weight, energetic deadness. The space felt blank, like a waiting room with no one on the way. Feng Shui treats the entryway as the mouth of qi, the place where energy enters, collects, and moves. When that space is lifeless, when it's too pale, too empty, too sterile, it doesn't just block lucky flow. It sends it right back out the door. White-on-white entryways may look clean, but they dissolve energy. They erase momentum. No anchor means no welcome. No warmth means no invitation. And no defined transition means no magnetic pull. Without energetic landing space, cash energy doesn't settle. Wealth doesn't take root. And people, they pass through quickly. If energy doesn't pause to enter your life, neither will money. Eric didn't notice the emotional impact at first. But over a few weeks, small things started changing. People dropped by less often. Packages went missing. Neighbors seemed colder, distant. And somehow, every time he came home, a strange, forgettable numbness set in. No sense of arrival, No sense of ownership. Just drift. The front of the house didn't hold anything. Not his energy. Not his presence. Not even his attention. It became the one part of his home that erased him. Right when he stepped inside, the entryway didn't feel like an entrance anymore. It felt like a signal that nothing was grounded. It was like walking into a blank page that never got written on. You show up, but nothing welcomes you. Nothing greets. Nothing says, "Hey, you belong here." In Feng Shui, entryways are containers of invitation. They tell Qi what to do. They whisper to energy, "Come in, settle, move through." But when that space is bleached and bare, it becomes the opposite. A silent rejection. A keep moving zone. That affects more than your mood. It affects your money flow. Because if the front of your home can't hold energy, how can it hold opportunity? What enters through your door mirrors what you're ready to receive. Eric Googled, "Why front door feels dead?" Entryway Feng Shui colors. Spaces that block home energy. One article explained how blank, colorless entry points confuse the body's sense of spatial orientation. You lose the rhythm of arrival, which subtly stresses the nervous system. A Feng Shui blog explained it even better. If your entry has no invitation, Qi has no destination. Another YouTuber called it flow starvation. That phrase stuck. He wasn't lacking money. He was lacking magnetic flow. And that began right at the door. Eric didn't tear the place up. He shifted layers. Started with color? A soft mustard runner by the door. Added a dark wooden bowl for keys. Hung a framed photo of the desert at sunrise. Gold, warm, grounded. Placed a plant with thick round leaves beside the bench. Swapped the shelf light to a golden bulb. Put a small Feng Shui bell chime on the inside doorknob. Subtle, but every time the door opened, there was a faint sound. Like a whisper saying, "You're home, keep the flow." Lisa noticed first. Then Josh. Then Eric himself. He didn't just walk in anymore. He arrived. The entryway no longer erased him. It met him halfway. Kevin swung by one afternoon, saw the new setup, and mumbled, "Damn, this looks like the front of a therapist who made it big on YouTube." Eric handed him a cinnamon tea and laughed. "As long as the therapist's rich and grounded, I'm good with that." Sometimes, the most ignored spaces hold the biggest leaks. And fixing them doesn't require perfection. Just intention. Just one human decision to stop letting energy drift. Because Feng Shui doesn't ask for expensive change. It asks for real welcome. And when you start welcoming energy in again, cash starts staying longer too. If your entryway feels like an exit, don't be surprised your paycheck's ghosting you. Sometimes, the room that's supposed to refresh you is the very place draining your flow. Drop by drop, vibe by vibe, day after day. Eric didn't expect the crash to come from the bathroom. He'd fixed the bedroom, softened the living room, warmed the kitchen, and even made the entryway feel like a soft landing. But the exhaustion kept creeping back. In strange waves. After good days, after progress. There was a moment barefoot on the tile, brushing his teeth, when he noticed it. The space felt sterile. Not clean. Empty. White walls, white sink, white tile, white light. Not a soft white. a sharp, cold, surgical white. And right then, it hit. This room didn't recharge him. It rinsed him out. It felt like standing inside a refrigerator with fluorescent feelings. In Feng Shui, bathrooms are already tricky. They're spaces of drainage, literally and energetically. So when you surround that with nothing but cold white, you double the loss. White symbolizes purity. But when overused in a bathroom, it removes grounding. It disperses warmth. And it speeds up energy leakage. No color equals no container. No container equals flow exits fast. The body cleans, but the spirit empties too far. The water drains, and so does your focus, money, and mental charge. Especially when the bathroom is the first or last space you enter in the day. That kind of loss compounds quietly. When your environment releases more than it holds, wealth starts slipping before you even notice it's gone. Eric had started to feel it every morning. This strange blankness. Not sadness. Not anxiety. Just a flicker of detachment. As if the day didn't belong to him yet. And some mornings didn't want to. And that carried into weird little money behaviors. Forgetting automatic payments. Ignoring a budget app alert. Skipping over receipts that needed checking. He wasn't being irresponsible. Just porous. Like too much of his energy was being pulled somewhere. Before he even left the house, the bathroom became the place where clarity disappeared. It felt like starting the day with a 20% battery and no charger in sight. It was like trying to store soup in a pasta strainer. No matter how much good stuff went in, it didn't stay. White bathrooms with hard edges and no energetic warmth create that exact kind of invisible leak. Feng Shui calls bathrooms energy release zones. But that doesn't mean they should wipe your cash flow clean. It means they need containment, support, and reset. And when everything is white, there's nothing to hold the energy. Only echo. That echo over time becomes fatigue. That fatigue becomes forgetfulness. And that forgetfulness becomes missed money. In time, focus, or actual dollars. If your bathroom strips you of presence, it will quietly strip you of power too. Eric didn't even search for it. YouTube suggested a Feng Shui video. Why white bathrooms can make you feel empty. He clicked. The creator explained how cold color plus high moisture creates energetic voids in Feng Shui. And the body picks up on that, responding with low drive, morning anxiety, or money avoidance. Another article said, overexposed white increases sensory strain. You don't feel clean, you feel erased. It all made sense. He wasn't tired. He was getting drained by a room meant to refresh him. Eric didn't want to retile. So he started with contrast. Swapped the white mat for a deep forest green one. Added a burnt orange hand towel. Hung a framed gold-trimmed mirror. Moved a live money plant to the shelf above the toilet. Then came scent, clove and citrus diffuser. And soft glow amber lighting instead of cold LED. The room felt warmer. Felt slower. Felt like a place where endings weren't erasures. Just quiet resets. He even taped a small note behind the cabinet door. Energy in, not out. Corny? Maybe. But every time he saw it, he smiled. Because he could feel the difference. And more importantly, he could feel himself again. The bathroom stopped rinsing him out. and started helping him begin. Josh walked in one afternoon, used the bathroom, came out and said, "Yo, why does your bathroom feel like a yoga retreat had a baby with a jazz bar?" Eric handed him a drink and said, "Because I stopped letting it bleach my luck, that's why." They laughed. But inside, Eric knew it wasn't a joke. It was the final room. The last piece. The full flow was back. That soft rhythm where things don't just look better, they behave better. Money calls come easier. Ideas show up. And life stops leaking through the cracks you didn't even know were there. If your bathroom feels like a freezer, don't be shocked. Your cash is on ice. Feng Shui was never just about how things look. It's always been about how they flow, and whether that flow is helping you build the life you actually want. Sometimes, the colors we trust the most are the ones quietly holding back our wealth, our clarity, and our energy. But the beauty of Feng Shui is it gives you the chance to reset the flow, to stop letting muted spaces mute your direction. If this video helped you see even one room differently, if something in it sparked a shift, take a breath with that. Because that's how energy begins to move again. From the color on your walls, to the quiet ways your home holds or releases your cash flow, this practice is always guiding you toward more clarity, more alignment, and yes, even more money and lucky movement than you thought possible. Your space speaks. Wisdom listens.